Direct Logic's counters. Well, Direct Logic software now, we're using a different software. So we start with a counter. Counters, when we get to these, are going to be part of the edit mode out of a box command. So right here we can pick out just about any kind of a different type of programming. There's math, message, tables, timer counters, drums, all kinds. Well, for the timer counter box, we're picking out the different types right here. So we have a counter, a simple CNT, and it tells us right here on the bottom exactly how to use it. So very useful. I close that down. The instructions themselves, well, they're simple open and close contacts. Now, I get out of edit mode right there, and we're going to go online with this timer, and I'm going to connect to the PLC. Well, there's a PLC I'm connecting to. I select it, and it connects. But now there's a difference between the program in the PLC and the program on the computer. So I'm going to use the program on the computer. Well, this program's on the computer in run mode, but it's not in the PLC. The PLC has a different program. So now I have to write the program to the PLC. Once I write it, it erases the memory, replaces the program. Well, right here, nothing's really happening in the program until I click on the status. And now this identifies how everything works. Now, right here on line 1, I have a standard start-stop station that turns the system on. We're using Y0 as a master stop. When I push the button X4, that's going to make this counter go up. Counter 0, the K is the memory location. It's going to count to the number 10. The current count is 0. Once it reaches whatever number, I can reset that counter by pushing the X3 push button. So this reset can be manual or automatic, virtually any way. Now, once that counter is done counting, the counter's done bit will turn on. When it reaches 10, this contact closes, turning on the output. Well, we use a memory close contact too. When that counter reaches a number 10, this contact will open, turning off the output. Kind of simple in function and how it works. Now all I really have to do right here is hit the start button, X2, one time. That activates the counter, and every time I push the button or do the input X4, that counter is going to go up by 1. The highlights on that program, if the command is not highlighted, the command is a 0. If the command is highlighted, the command is a 1. So right there, we can identify and troubleshoot by using the programming. We count to 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 8, 9. Finally, at 10, the counter activated. But I can still continue to count. That counter will count pulses, inputs, whatever it's going to count, and it'll count indefinitely until it receives the command to stop or the command to reset. The reset command will be on push button 3. So I hit the 3 push button, X3, and it resets everything back to 0. So I can count up. Some of the counters will even count down. So a simple counter. We can count as much as we want. And if I stop the button, stop the system, right there it will not count because the logic is not complete. So we have different types of counters. They all have different visuals. These set up all pretty much the same way. Next counter is a count up and down counter. It counts both directions. The count up, count down counter is a little bit different. This counter is going to have 3 inputs. One input on the top is for count up, one input in the middle is for count down, and the third input on the bottom is for reset. It's still a counter. The difference is it has two inputs. One counts up, one counts down. The output right here, when this counter is done, CT0, it's going to count to 10. When it's done counting, right here, the contact will close, turning on the output. Contact will open, turning on the output. We could also use comparison statements in there. But line 1, I have a standard start-stop station. Turns on the output. When output turns on, contacts close, arming the system. Once I arm the system, then when I push the button attached to terminal X4, the counter counts up. When I push the button, the button attached to terminal X5, the counter counts down. Just like any counter, it's only going to count the transitions between 1 or 0, open and close, true, false, high, low. So there has to be a transition for it to count. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect to the PLC. So we select it. There's two different programs in use. The PLC's got one program, the computer has another program. So we're going to use the computer program. Okay, I have a computer program here in front of me running, but the PLC has a different program. So we need to write the program to the PLC. This will overwrite whatever's inside of the PLC. We click on the status to see what the condition of the program is. Everything highlighted blue is active. Everything that is not highlighted is not active. So we can look at this in terms of zeros and ones, binary. The stop button is now a 1. It is activated. I push the start button. It activates. Turns on the output. Output latches on. Output arms the system. But as I push the button X4, that counter counts upwards. Every time I push that button, transition of 0 to 1, the counter moves. It transitions by one number. When I push the other button, X5, it'll count down by one number. So we can do things like count servo motors, count motions, count just about anything. Count the number of vehicles going into a parking garage, number of vehicles coming out. If you can find a use for a counter, it can be used. But now once it reaches the preset, now the done bit turns on. Contact closed, load turned on. But as we count down, that bit activates again. So we're going back and forth between the activation. So we got counters that'll count up only, counters that'll count down only, and counters that'll count both up and down. Whether you want to use only one up function or one down function, that's up to you, or use them both, that's up to you. But everybody's got counters. They all have a slightly different graphic, but every one of them are going to work the same exact way.